Hi, I'm Lee Phillips. Yep, I'm still a lawyer. And we've got
I'm Ben Rucker.
Ben and I work together. I'm the lawyer, the attorney type guy, and he's the tax type guy. Actually, Ben's a former special auditor for the IRS, did the big criminal cases for them. Now, I've done a YouTube a little while back on EIN numbers, employer identification numbers. And what we want to do now is we want to go and start from scratch. We're going to start from the bottom and we're going to go through the computer application for an EIN. So you know exactly what they're asking and how we're going to get this EIN, this employer identification number. That's the social security number for your, chokes me all up.
Sorry.
For that's okay. For your company. Now, in the other video, I reminded you that if you have an LLC and you've chosen it to be taxed as a sole proprietor, or you actually just have a sole proprietorship, you do not need an EIN number. You're going to be your social security number, your actual social security number. So let's get this EIN number. Ben's going to start us from scratch at Google.
And maybe we'll make that another video, Lee, that talks about when do you need a new EIN number, when do you need one? Because there's certain situations too where maybe you buy a business or something like that, you don't need one. So, all right, I'm going to show you guys exactly what we do on Google. So we're going to type in IRS EIN number. And you've got to be careful because anything that says ad
is an ad.
It's an ad. Someone's paying for that. It's not the IRS. And what you do is you end up clicking on this link and you're 75% of the way through it and they're asking for your credit card number. And then you may or may not realize it's not even the IRS.
Now the IRS isn't going to charge you for an EIN number.
No, and it's so simple to get. I don't even know how people are able to make a business out of doing this. So the first one here, you'll know it's IRS because it's always irs.gov. And sometimes these companies get creative. They have IRS-EIN.
IRS, that's Internal Revenue Service.
That's right.
I call it the Eternal Revenue Service.
So, all right. So this talks about the different steps that you're going to do. So you guys can read that later. Let's make this quick and easy. So we go to apply online now. Click on that button right there.
Back in the old day, you used to write them and fill out a paper and send it in and wait a month. And then they got so you could call in and you'd fill out the paperwork first, call in and read the paperwork to them over the phone. And then over the phone, they'd give you the EIN back. That was pretty cool. But now we just do it all online.
So just a couple things, and it's saying this on here. You have to do this in one session. If you let it sit for more than 15 minutes, it's going to time you out. And anyway, so let's go ahead here and let's begin the application. So this is where you're going to choose the type of entity that you have, how you want it to be taxed, right?
So legally, we've got different types of entities. The sole proprietorship, that's one individual, can't be more than one, and you're just doing business. You fill out a Schedule C on your 1040 tax return. Partnerships, you got to have at least two. That's two or more people engaged in a common activity with the intent to make money. So it's not your marriage. Well, might be some.
Might be.
Intent to make money. The corporations, now a legal structure is a corporation. The tax is subchapter S or chapter C. So people say, I've got an S corporation or I've got a C corporation. Legally, from a lawyer's standpoint, you have a corporation, end of discussion. It may be taxed under subchapter S or taxed under chapter C. The limited liability company is another legal structure, and you get to choose how it's going to be taxed. Are you going to have it taxed as a sole proprietor, a partnership, under subchapter S of the IRS code, like an S corporation or a C corporation? It's not a corporation, but you get the same taxation. In fact, the IRS doesn't even know that you have an LLC or a corporation. They just know that you have an entity that's being taxed under one of these two sections of the IRS code. Now we have an estate
and trust, and I think everyone probably knows what those are, right?
Well, yeah, the estate is an individual who has died, and when they die, you're going to need a tax ID number to wrap up their affairs. and you're going to have to go to court and have a personal representative appointed and all of that sort of stuff.
We're going to assume, for me, Lee, I'm an LLC.
Okay.
And I want to be taxed as a corporation.
That's the knee-jerk reaction.
So I want LLC, but there's two check marks, LLC and corporation. If we're going to be an LLC, we're going to check LLC box. So let's do that one right there, LLC. And we're going to continue here. Okay. So this talks about an LLC, what it is and what it isn't. So we're going to hit continue.
So that's just a bunch of talking.
So if you're a corporation, you're not an LLC.
Yeah, but you can still be taxed under the same code section.
Right. Which is kind of weird because did you see that, what that was saying there, Lee?
No.
See this bottom part? What it is not, LLCs are not incorporated and do not file as articles of incorporation.
Well, yeah, LLCs file certificates of organization or articles of organization. We're talking semantics here. It's basically the exact same thing, but the lawyers have created a different language for LLCs versus corporations so that you can tell which one you're talking about.
All right. So instead of, I'm going to put two. There's two, me and my wife, we're going to run this business together.
Now, you and your wife, is that one person or two people's?
It's two.
Can I have one? I could still have it be taxed as a sole
proprietorship. You can still have one. And what I want to show you by doing this, though, if you put two, it'll try and default you to a partnership.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and I'm going to choose Utah, whatever state you're in. And
so I got two people in the company and I'm in Utah.
So see, it's saying due to the number of members in your LLC, you are considered a multi-member limited liability company. So they're going to try and automatically make me a partnership because I put two or more.
That's the default.
Yes. And if I want to be taxed as an S corporation, I have to go ahead and file these forms 2553 or a form 8832. We always do 2553, and we'll actually do another video on how to file that form. But let's go back here, and I want to go and show you guys what happens if we do one. So let's say we're one member. Since you'll be classified as a disregarded entity. So if you choose one member,
it's going to default you to sole proprietorship.
Yeah, or disregarded entity.
Well, basically, a disregarded entity is, in a business sense, a sole proprietorship. Now, the fact of the matter is a living revocable trust is a disregarded entity.
I guess it wouldn't be, some people set them up for rentals properties.
You're right.
And you wouldn't have a Schedule C in that case.
You'd have a Schedule E.
Right.
But I use my own social security number.
Right. Well, or you could use.
So basically, anytime it says disregarded entity, I'm using my own social security number. I don't even need an EIN.
Well, fine. But I mean, this is a way of getting one. And when it's disregarded, it means that the IRS isn't going to look for separate tax returns from you.
So do I still get an EIN, or do I not even want an EIN?
No, you'll still get one, because if you decide to convert it to an S corporation down the road, you'll need that EIN.
But I could do that later.
Yeah, you could do that.
So later. I don't, if I'm doing one guy and I'm going to be a disregarded entity, sole proprietorship, just bag this.
Yeah, but we'll assume everyone's already made it past that and they're just trying to get the EIN. So here's what so the next question it's asking is, why are we getting one of these? Did we start a new business? We purchased a business, whatever. I'm going to click we started a new business, because I'm assuming that's what most people are doing.
Now, wait a minute. It says hired employees. If I'm a sole proprietor and I work for myself, I'm fine. But if I hire employees, I got to have an EIN number?
Yes. And the reason why you're going to need an EIN number is because the payroll returns, they require an EIN number. So
a lot of banks are also going to require an EIN, or at least they're going to argue that you need.
And that's why I guess it's another reason, just get an EIN now.
But if I've clicked disregarded entity, then I don't have to file a separate tax return for the company?
Correct.
Just a Schedule C?
Yep.
Okay.
And you can choose later to file a separate tax return or not. So I'm going to click started a new business. So I'm going to go ahead and enter my information here. John Doe. I'm going to do John Doe. And
Doesn't have King.
actually, you know what? I'm going to have to put my information in here for real. So it'll take me to the next phase. And Soraya, I'm really hoping, is going to blur out my social security number.
Because we had to put his social security number in.
Yeah, because if it's wrong, it's going to give me an error when I go to the next page. So I'm going to hit continue here. That way it knows who to link this up to and it's a valid person. I put my address here.
Now that's your business address or your personal address?
I'm going to put my business address in here because that's where I want the mail to go to if I ever have any issues. I guess you can do a different address if you want mail to be sent, but this is I'm putting my business address here. I'd recommend you do that or your home address, either way. All right, I'm going to continue. So what is the business name of your company? Let's call it Lee and Ben
Ice cream?
Training.
Okay.
Okay. Now state, we're going to be incorporated in Utah. And the start date, Lee.
Now, I have a whole nother set of YouTube videos on which state do you want to be your LLC in or your corporation in. So pay attention to that.
So I'm going to put January 2021 because that's when we started doing this, right, Lee?
Right.
So I'm going to hit continue. Does your business own a highway motor vehicle with over 55,000 pounds? That is a big, most trucks, just so you know, are 6,000 pounds. So if you have a 55,000 pound or more vehicle, you're going to know it. And I guarantee
that's an 18-wheeler.
Yeah, I don't think any of you guys do. We don't do gambling. Does your form need to file Form 720?
What's
Quarterly
720?
federal excise tax return.
How do I know?
What's
720?
It's an excise tax return.
What does that mean?
It's an excise taxes.
We can't get that when I exercise.
No.
Exercise.
Well, excise taxes is too complicated for this video, Lee. Let's just get into. If you
So,
don't know what excise taxes are,
then the answer is no.
It's probably most likely no. Does your business sell or manufacture alcohol, tobacco, or firearms? No. Do you expect to have? Do you have or do you expect to have any employees who will receive W-2s? So, if you're going to be an S corporation, Lee, that's how you want to be taxed. You've got to pay yourself a reasonable wage through a W-2.
So is I as an employee?
Yeah. So you would check yes on that one. If you're not going to be an S corporation, or this is for rentals or something like that, click no, but let's just make that yes. Okay.
Now, I have to click it even if I'm the only employee.
Yes, because if you're the owner in an S corporation, you're considered an employee.
If it's a partnership,
you are not considered an employee.
So I would check no.
If you don't have any employees besides yourself, you're going to click no.
But I'm not an employee of a sole proprietorship or a partnership.
You're going to click no for any business structure. If it's an S corporation, that's the one exception. You will click yes, or a C corporation.
You guys shouldn't be a C corporation.
If it's a corporation, you're always going to choose yes, though, on that. Okay.
Okay.
So we'll hit continue. What is the first date wages or annuities were or will be paid? So that hopefully that's going to be in the future. So we're probably not going to pay ourselves, Lee, until next month, right?
Well, I'd give yourself a lot of extra time on this. It's better to have this too far out, because the only thing they're asking is, when do I expect a tax return or a W-2? And people get in trouble because they check that box or they give a date now, but then they don't actually do anything until next September.
Yeah, that's a good point. because you can always file earlier.
I can always file earlier.
So if you have number of employees, we're going to put 2 other because they're not agriculture employees. Do you expect your employment tax liability to be?
Wait a minute, who's the 2? Me and you?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you expect your employment tax liability to be 1,000 or less? I usually click no, because if it's 1,000 or less, instead of filing form 941, which is the most common form, you have to file 944s. And then if you end up incurring more liabilities, they send you a letter and they switch you to 941. So it can kind of confuse you a little bit.
Can I do 941 even if it's less than 1,000?
No, they'll send you a letter and say you have to file 944s now. So I would start out by defaulting this one to no.
So just going like this, how much do I pay in salaries till I hit $1,000 in liability?
It depends on how much withholdings and stuff an employee has, but if there's no withholdings, it's going to be 15.3% just on FICA taxes. So 15.3% to get $1,000 liability is what, like 10 grand, $7,000 in wages.
Okay, so
So
that's
not very
a
much.
chunk.
So I'd put no. Okay. What does your business or organization do? This is pretty self-explanatory. Figure out what it does. So we do consulting, right? I'm not seeing that on here, so I'm going to click other.
Okay. Why do they care?
Unknown caller.
I have 2 phones on me. What do I have 2 phones on me for?
I don't know.
I silenced the last one.
You're
now.
wired for stereo, boy.
Okay, so I hit other and I continue on that one. Okay. So, oh, look, it gives us the option right here. We do consulting. So you can see these other things they'll give you here.
Possibilities.
Yep, continue. And then, do you provide operating advice and assistance to businesses and other organizations?
Why are they asking that?
I don't know. They just want to get more specifics.
Because we answered consulting.
Do you provide advice? So I clicked yes.
No, you clicked no.
That's because I didn't specify. No, please specify your business activity. So let's do webinars or whatever we do. Okay, hit continue. So I have an option. I can, if I check receive letter online, I can do that, or the mail. I want to do online. And then I'm not going to finish this application lead because this was an example and I don't want an EIN assigned to me that I have to worry about closing down.
Right.
But once you get that letter, you want to save it.
Big time.
Print it, save it to a PDF. Don't lose it, because it's hard to get that letter again from the IRS, and it's not the same format that a lot of banks and stuff will want from you. Another important part about that letter is it tells you what your filing requirements are. And you need to pay attention to that.
What do you mean filing requirements?
It'll tell you if you need to file a partnership return, if the IRS is not expecting your return.
It's going to say 1065 or
and it'll tell
Schedule C or.
Yeah, and it'll tell you what payroll returns you have to file. So you need to give this to your accountant or keep it in your file and make sure you meet all those criteria.
Make a bunch of copies of it, actually.
Yeah, when I got mine, I just saved it as a PDF on my computer, and I always have it.
I thought you had yours
on my wall. Yeah, that's a fake one. No. So anyways, that's it. Pretty self-explanatory.
These IRS people are weird. I got to give you that.
Lee, how long did that take? Hey, I'm not an IRS employee anymore. I quit.
He's reforming.
Anyways,
is that the end of it?
That's the end of it. So, I mean,
So if we do continue, it's actually going to issue a number?
If I hit receive letter online and continue, that letter will pop up right there.
So it'll just,
yep,
there it is. So I print it?
Yeah, save it as a PDF, print it to PDF, whatever you want to do.
Print it, put it in your file.
Whatever method, but
save that letter.
That took us, like 10 minutes explaining how to do this and talking about all of their stuff. So there's no sense paying anyone to get that. It's easy.
I wouldn't think so.
But just don't get EIN happy and start getting a whole bunch of EINs that are floating against, because you remember we typed in my social security number. So the IRS has that attached to my social security number, that EIN. So if any penalties or any issues come up, they're coming after me first, and I have to convince them to go after you instead.
You don't want an EIN until you're absolutely sure that you're going to start making money and doing business. One of the biggest problems is the people who set up LLCs and corporations for you will dutifully get you an EIN. And I talk to a lot of people who have got a company that they've never used, but it has an EIN. And like I said in the other video, if that EIN has been taxed under subchapter S of the IRS code, then the IRS will charge you a penalty for every month that you were late in not filing a tax return that they expected. And that penalty is, I think it's still $195 a month. It goes up sometimes. $195 per month, per member, per owner. And I have had people come to me with $80,000 bills from the IRS because they set up a Wyoming or a Nevada company 3 years ago. The guys who set it up got the EIN, filed it under subchapter S. That's the 2553.
Yep, 2553.
They filed that form. And the IRS wants their tax return. They ain't been doing it.
So Lee, we have actually 2 videos we've got to make now. We're going to do one on how to prepare the form 2553,
right?
And how to file, even how to file it late. So you can actually file that form now for your business last year and convert it to an S corporation.
As long as you haven't filed your tax return this year,
right?
I can go back and say, hey, wait, time out. We were really an S corporation last year.
Right. So we're going to do that. And then we'll talk about how to close down an EIN. If you set one up and you don't,
another one we need to do is, from a tax standpoint, how do you decide which one of these you want?
Yeah, that's a good point too. We'll talk about the benefits of each one. So anyways,
all right, we've gone through the EIN number for you. Ben's off with his cell phones.
I've got
one in both ears.
Yeah. All right. Okay, Sarai.
Don't forget to subscribe. Yeah, we do these, and you want to know when we're doing another one, so don't forget to subscribe. Soraya is correct.